DNA Sports here, Dave, Joe. We want to talk a little bit about some of the fallacies in hitting that we went over in our last podcast. So it's just kind of nice to touch base and do some live demonstrations here on the field after we talk about it. Everybody hears us talk, so I'd like to show something. So you want to run over a little bit about the Astros hitting coach and some of the things he was saying?
We were talking about it in the last podcast. Dave Hutchins is the hitting coach of the Houston Astros, and he does a great job of trying to make hitters do the right thing. And we're going to show you what the wrong things are and how to correct them. So we'll get in more detail when we talk about it, but on the field, he's going to show you some of the things that are taught all the time at the youth levels and are wrong. And we're going to try to show you the right stuff.
All right, so the first one is, which is the biggest one, it's really the only thing that matters today. Well, the big thing is when coaches say, get your back elbow up, right? They say that because the intention is that they want kids to try to hit the ball square. They want kids to hit a line drive. The reality is raising your back elbow does not necessarily make you have a better swing. It actually creates flaws in your swing, especially at a young age, because you're not strong enough to have your back elbow up. And all it does is create hitches in your swing and more mechanical flaws.
There's no research that says the back elbow will help you hit better. And this is why we hear people in the stands say it and youth coaches say it, and it's absolutely wrong. And he's going to tell you why.
So there's a couple things here. When you have your back elbow up, first of all, when I trigger, let's say my back elbow's up. When I trigger, my back elbow's going to go even higher from this point. So now it's even farther from where I need to be. So that's just step A, right? So if my back elbow's up and I trigger, now I'm even farther. And as a young kid, you're going to have more power and strength through your core to get the bat back through the zone coming from a farther distance. So that's one. Now, if your arms are nice and relaxed and you trigger, your elbow raises on its own slightly anyways. So you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you lack the strength to get the bat back through the zone. The other reason is when your elbow's up, they say, raise your elbow up, hit the ball on a line drive. The problem with that is your elbow comes down by your rib cage as you go toward the ball. As your hips start to rotate, it drags your hands and arms through the zone. So what happens here is, as I start to rotate, what happens with my back elbow is it's right here by my rib cage. So if your elbow's up, the same thing is going to happen. But now if you're overcompensating by trying to keep that back elbow up, you're going to be late to the ball. So a lot of kids will drop their elbow like this instead of letting it just come down to this hitting slot. They'll drop their elbow, and then they overcompensate, and up goes the ball for an out.
Yeah, we used to have a hitting vest. And the hitting vest would keep the front elbow in toward your body, because if you raise the front elbow, the barrel of the bat drops. So with the back elbow, guys have a tendency to drop the bat too. If they start here, they drop the bat, and the barrel of the bat drops. Everything possible. The long loopy swing, it's loopy through the zone. There's only one pitch you can hit because you're dropping your hands, and then the barrel's here, and you go behind home plate instead of trying to get the ball in front of home plate, and you can only hit the ball that's right here. And a ball's usually going to go to the opposite field. I've seen it millions of times, working dozens of years with youth baseball.
We were talking about this a little bit off camera. There's a device, I forget the name of it, but it attaches to your arm here and here. So it's a pole.
Is that from college?
Yeah, and it clamps your arm here and here. And the idea is that it keeps your arms the same distance the entire way through your swing. Now, obviously, with something on your arms like that, you can't finish your swing, but it's a good starter for getting yourself in the right position to hit.
They used to call that boxing your swing. That's an old-time term, and this college coach still uses it. It's a great thing. When you box your arms, you're in good hitting position.
Yep. So what we would do is we would take a mat and have it against the wall. The clamps would go here, so you'd have your arms in the right position. So the idea is that they're the same distance apart throughout your swing, at least to this point. Now, we would do a half swing, obviously start from here, trigger, hips fire, and boom, right into the mat. Now, if your elbow's up or you're dropping your elbow, that distance is going to change. So what happens is, as my hips fire, I trigger, my hips rotate, it pulls my arm into this slot. Now, if I'm changing the distance, the distance between my two elbows is going to change. But if I have that device on, I can't change it. So it's a good tool to just practice good habits. But the idea is, this is a great demonstration right here. If you watch my elbows, as I trigger, same distance apart, as my hips fire, my elbow gets near my rib cage, but I don't move it. It just travels on that same plane. So I didn't move my elbows. My hips throw everything. My top half is still closed, and my elbow's right in this slot, ready to go through the ball.
And look at how he ends up. The power comes from the lower half.
Yep.
And you're seeing right now it's a hand skill. So they don't talk about muscle speed. They talk about bat speed, which comes from your hands. Okay, it's the same thing as pitching, we just talked about. Your velocity comes from your hands, okay, and from the ground up. So
yeah,
he's telling you, these elbows aren't going to produce any significant increase. It's actually going to decrease your bat speed.
Well, yeah, to get on the same plane as the ball, it's going to happen naturally if you keep the same distance between your elbows. Because what brings my hands into the zone are my hips. The more violent I am with my hips, the more bat speed that I begin to generate. That's why it's always important to have strong legs and a strong core. Because as I trigger, I have tension between my legs still, and I start to rotate. Watch my hands move as my hips fire. Right? So I didn't actually move my hands toward the ball. They moved on their own as a result of my power that I'm generating through my hips. So this action right here is just from my hips.
And again, the higher you go in baseball, the more you realize that not many parts should be moving. So his lower half is going to be providing the power, and his hands are going to find the ball. And anything else, you're not going to be able to hit the ball because they throw so hard as go up the level of baseball.
And that's why we really preach having a simple swing. So the less movement, the better, because the more movement, the more room for error, the greater ability for you to have flaws in your swing. So I really preach a short stride like this, whereas a lot of kids want to mock the MLB players and have the high leg kick. That disrupts your timing, and so then you try to rush to the ball and create more flaws in your swing because you're rushing, and then you'll pop it up or you're late, you hit it the wrong way, etc.